Welcome to the free audiobook version of The Everyday Pain Guide, your go-to guide when pain first strikes. Hi, I'm Dr. Ya-Ling Liu, and the podcast is taking a little detour to make my new book available in an audio-friendly version for everyone out there. Each episode will feature a bite-sized snippet from the book, and together we'll work our way through as much of it as is possible in this format. What's exciting about this is that I'm reading parts of the book to you before it's even available on the shelves. Plus, unlike with a traditional audiobook, you can engage with the content and chat with me about what you hear. You get to ask questions and tell me what you think as each episode rolls out. So sit back and relax as I bring you today's installment of the second book in the Everyday Pain Guide series, Fix the Fire Damage. Today, we're continuing the release phase of the Body Chemistry Action Plan, specifically as we explore ways to release the sneaky 3. We're starting here with the first 3 out of 9 food sensitivities by looking at what they are and some ideas about how to circumnavigate them during this phase of action as you work to unburden your body from its overall inflammatory load for less pain now and in the future. Please remember that the information, techniques, and suggestions discussed here are not intended as a substitute for your own medical care. Always consult a healthcare provider before implementing any advice referenced here. Release your food sensitivities. Here is a brief overview of the common sneaky food trigger items and how best to cope with or avoid them during this exploratory release phase. Dairy. People can have a reaction to dairy protein as well as dairy sugar, lactose, which is what makes this one confusing. Additionally, there can be both a true allergy to the protein, and that's the more severe IgE-mediated version, which can lead to anaphylaxis, and a less severe protein intolerance, the non-IgE-mediated version, which can show up as digestive discomfort. There are also 2 different types of dairy sugar problems. The more severe lactose problem is one of malabsorption because of a genetically missing enzyme, luckily affecting only 3% of adults. The milder symptoms of lactose intolerance are linked to dysfunction in the gut, which is much more common but less well understood. With low-grade intolerance of both dairy protein and/or dairy sugar, symptoms might include a combination of upper respiratory issues, intestinal discomfort, skin eruptions, or eczema. If you think you have some form of dairy intolerance, you can improve your success in alleviating your inflammatory body burden by temporarily eliminating all dairy completely. But if you prefer a more moderate approach, who can blame you? You could experiment as follows. Do you suspect lactose intolerance? Eat low lactose dairy, like butter, hard cheeses, for example, Parmesan, yogurt, kefir, or sour cream. Do you suspect protein intolerance? Skip ahead to the retrain section for more information on how to improve your dairy protein tolerance. And in the meantime, make sure to either cook your dairy before eating or consume dairy that contains active bacterial cultures. Both heat from cooking and live bacterial cultures make the protein more easily digestible. Alternatives to dairy. There are many options including oat, soy, nut, and even pea protein milks and cheeses. However, remember that there is additional processing required to produce milk or cheese that isn't from cow's milk, and so you may be trading one irritant, dairy, for another, processed food. Also, each of these substitutes has its own risk of intolerance at high concentrations, depending on your genetics. Milk from other animals like goat and sheep can provide a more digestible protein for some people, but still contain lactose, making it a viable alternative for some, but not for those who are either lactose intolerant or those who are trying to decrease sugar intake. Wheat, gluten versus pesticide contamination. If you're avoiding the big three, then you're probably already taking a step back from wheat because of its association with carbohydrates. Wheat gluten has seemingly become more problematic over recent decades, and true gluten intolerance, also known as celiac disease, is increasing worldwide. There is now expanding research revealing that the rise in the use of glyphosate, the chemical in the herbicide product Roundup, is causing it to enter the food chain at a higher incidence. As it turns out, the symptoms of glyphosate ingestion may mimic the actual gluten intolerance of celiac disease. It may not matter whether the cause is pesticide or gluten-based for you, because both issues can be diminished by avoiding gluten. If after taking a break from it, your body feels unburdened enough to experiment with reintroducing gluten, you can stick with organic sources first, as they are reported to have fewer synthetic pesticide residues, although more research is still needed on that front, and there are no guarantees or ways to confirm pesticide levels for each gluten-containing food. Nonetheless, you may get some information about your overall garbage load based on how you feel as you try things out. If you're thinking about exploring gluten substitutions to avoid wheat, but also trying to avoid the sugar spiking foods of the big three, then your choices may be limited to wild rice, which is technically not a grain, but a seed. Wild rice can offer a fullness that we associate with starchy grains. If, on the other hand, you are staying open to starchy grains but looking for lower glycemic index ones, then quinoa, brown rice, buckwheat, and oats can provide some satisfaction. Caffeine. In addition to being one of the big three, caffeine is also part of the sneaky three due to the gene mutation that makes people either slow or quick metabolizers of the caffeine molecule. Caffeine sensitivity comes from being a slow metabolizer of caffeine. Those who take a longer time to break it down will describe more intense and disruptive experiences of jitters, sleeplessness, and/or anxiety. This mutation affects the CYP450 family of enzymes, which you learned about in the previous chapter's section on liver detox. When there's a mutation affecting the CYP450 family of enzymes, it means the liver isn't as easily able to break down your caffeine as part of its auto-detox process. The heightened symptoms of caffeine sensitivity involve release of a stress chemical, cortisol, which in small doses can be anti-inflammatory, but chronically high cortisol can increase inflammation. This means that those who are genetically caffeine sensitive, but who consume caffeine daily anyway, are likely more vulnerable to the inflammatory effect of chronically high cortisol. If, as part of your effort to decrease the big three, you decided to eliminate sugar and processed foods, but compromised on the caffeine part by trying a different kind or just less of it, that's great. It's definitely a reasonable option. But if you're also still noticing body pain, then you might be someone who needs a complete break from all caffeine after all. You might be genetically caffeine sensitive. If so, please refer back to substitution suggestions that were covered when looking at how to release the big three. That completes another section of the Body Chemistry Action Plan from Volume 2 of the Everyday Pain Guide series, Fix the Fire Damage. Today's question for you: sensitivity to wheat gets a lot of eye rolls in some circles. I want to know if you are maybe an eye roller or an eye rollee. Others roll their eyes at you when you have to ask for special accommodations. Have you had people poo-poo your need to avoid wheat, or are you tired of accommodating those gluten-sensitive people in your life? I think both groups have legitimate arguments. Where do you fall on this issue? Well, let's have a heated debate or just a civil conversation, maybe, over at my Substack publication, Better Pain Coping, where you can chat with me about this episode. Share your thoughts or just find some extra content, including the research references that informed my writing for this chapter. Check the links in today's show notes to see how you can join the conversation over there. In the next episode, we'll continue our look at food sensitivities and how to release them. The next 4 are amines, soy, yeasts, and sulfites. And if some of these sound weird and unfamiliar to you, don't worry. It'll all become clear. See you then. This episode was an excerpt from The Everyday Pain Guide, your go-to guide when pain first strikes. Written and narrated by me, Dr. Ya-Ling Liu, with audio editing and production provided by Organized Sound Productions. Do you have questions or comments about today's episode? You can shoot me an email anytime at hello@stopeverydaypain.com. That's HELLO@stopeverydaypain.com. If you have friends or family members who you know are struggling with persistent, recurring aches and pains, tell them to check out the podcast while they're waiting for the book. To help me get this information to as many people who need it as possible, please consider leaving an honest review, but I'd also be super grateful for a simple like, follow, or share. Thank you for helping me put a stop to everyday pain.